So today I'm going to take you through how to install a weft onto a mesh base. So in the last video I showed you how to actually just create a patch. So what we're going to do is put a build on that patch now, and I'm going to sew a strip of weft onto this mesh so that you can just see how you can do it. Now the first thing that you want to do is kind of make sure that you're using the length of weft that you want to do. So here I'm just cutting the weft, as you can see, and I am going to use that amount of weft directly onto the mesh. Now with this particular weft, it's quite thick. A lot of the wefts, they kind of sew two sections together. I like to split them, and the reason why I'd like to do that is because it actually allows your system to move better, to give it a little bit more movement. So the more natural we can get, the better it is. So here I'm using a pair of scissors, but there are other tools that you can use to actually split that. You can also get wefts, and we do have ultra wefts, which are super thin. And if you had wefts like that, then you don't need to split it, and that obviously reduces the amount of time that you're spending on building your system. This is, again, we're using it for people that have got fine hair, and usually they don't need the amount of hair that you would normally put on, say, for example, a wig for someone that's looking to have like a lot more volume and they're looking for a lot of hair. So what you want to do is you want to get rid of anything that's going to distract you. So here I'm clipping away the layers that I'm not working on, because I'm going to work on the bottom layer, and then I'm going to sew my weft onto that bottom layer. So as you can see here, I'm just making sure it's secure, and now I'm going to put it in between the section from the bottom where I've got the beads on the bottom layer. I'm just going to put it in between that and the second row. It'd be a good idea to kind of almost secure the weft in place, just so that you know where you're putting it. You can remove your clips afterwards once you've started, but I like to always put some clips there just to make sure that it's positioned right and it doesn't fall down. Here's a much more closer view. You can see that. So I'm left-handed, so I always start from the left and go towards the right. But you could be, that might be difficult for you if you're doing it in the other direction. But if you're doing it in the other direction, as you can see, I've actually put like a little bit of an overflow, but I'll go back to that in a bit. I just wanted to show you the knot that I've created. It's a very simple knot. You just double knot it at the bottom, however you would normally double knot. I've using, again, curved needles. It's so important to use curved needles on a client because you don't want to poke them. I'm just going to show you the way I do the first connection. You see there, I'm just splitting the thread. I'm putting it through, and all that does is just it puts the thread onto the actual weft and onto the mesh itself. It hasn't actually sealed anything at this point, so you need to go in now and seal that. I use the same method of sewing for everything that I do. I find that it's very simple, very easy to learn, and once you get into the rhythm of it, you can use this for so many different types of application. Sometimes you may get loops, but that's okay as long as you unravel the loop. It's very simple and easy to do it as long as you're doing it on that particular knot that you've created. If you go in and create a knot afterwards and then you try and unravel something that you've done previously, it's not going to work because you've blocked it with the knot. So when you put the needle through, you wrap it round the needle twice and then you pull it through. Very simple. Just make sure that that knot is as close as possible to the weft. Then you move along. Usually I move along probably about 1/2 inch. Again, you're putting it through the weft as well as the mesh. You can see here, I've gone around it twice. And just look, if you see closely, I know I'm using a colour that's very close to the colour used on the weft, which is what you would normally use. However, it's not best for demonstration. But if you look closely, you can see what I'm doing. Let's go in again. Push it through. Once, twice, pull it. Get rid of any loops. Sometimes you're going to have to split the thread in order to locate which of those threads has caused the loop. Okay, make sure you just get your spacing right. You don't want it too close and you also don't want it too far apart. Like I said, I generally use about 1/4 of an inch. Sometimes you can go to about 1/2 an inch, just depending on what you're doing, but just make sure that it's sturdy enough. It's not flapping. And it's as close to that mesh as you can possibly get. Like I said, I am left-handed, so I am going in this direction. You may want to go in the other direction, but if you are going the other direction, if you can see there, I've just got an overlap over the mesh, and I'm going to show you why I've done that. So make sure that you put the overlap over the mesh towards the front, not towards the back. And again, that overlap only needs to be about 1/2 an inch. Actually, not even 1/2 an inch, maybe 1/4 of an inch. Once you've done the last knot there, you just need to go over it a couple of times because these are the areas where it's going to be the most fragile, i.e. those are the areas that can come off, and then you don't really want your wefts hanging down. So you want to go over it a few times just to make sure that it's secure. And you can see there, I've gone over it about 2 or 3 times. And just look how secure that is. Trying to give you a close-up view, you can see that it's neatly done. Now I'm just going to show you what I do at the end. So what I tend to do is I do an additional connection at the very end where I actually am applying a bead onto that section, and then I'm going to connect that overlap onto the bead. So just watch what I do. In this video, I'm going to use the very small beads. So these are the nano beads, just because it's going to make it even more discreet. And there you see the beads on. Just clamp it your usual way, as close as possible as you can get to the scalp, just directly underneath that overlap. And now we're going to sew that overlap onto that bead. Make sure you go underneath the bead, through the weft. Again, this is a good reason as to why you want to split the weft itself, because if you had double weft, then this might be a bit difficult to do. And there you go. And now that bead has been hidden, and just go in a few more times. Attach exactly the same way. What I've done here is I've used the same thread that I've used for the rest of the tracking for this particular bead process here. Ordinarily, you probably would just want to have a separate piece of thread, and the reason why is because if you are doing a retie turn, for instance, you just need to replace that section as opposed to getting rid of all the entire row that you've done. And also, if you are then taking off the system itself for washing or anything like that, all you're doing is just disconnecting that particular bead from the client, and therefore you're not disrupting the rest of the weft that you've created, that you've put onto the actual system itself. If you had done it on one line like I've done here, if you're going to remove everything, then you'd probably then would have disrupted the actual base itself. So yeah, although I've done it connected in this way, I would advise that you use a separate thread when you are doing these connections at the end. So just finish it off by creating a number of single knots, just to secure it in place. As you can see there, I tend to do about 3 to 4 single knots, and then you just cut it off with scissors and you finish that track. Doing it this way also allows it to lie flatter, because remember, we're dealing with people that have got fine thinning hair. So the thinner the weft is, the better it is. So that's how you do the first row, and you can just go ahead now and do your other rows.